to be part of such an important gathering and to present to you on the church's post-abortion healing ministry. And we're very grateful to Bishop Olmsted and to Carmen for inviting us to come make this presentation. This is an awesome diocese, which is always giving a tremendous witness to the gospel of life. And I would also mention that Bishop Olmsted is a member of the Pro-Life Committee for the U.S. Bishops' Conference, so this issue is very close to his heart. So let's begin with a prayer. You expired, Jesus, but the source of life gushed forth for souls, and the ocean of mercy opened up for the whole world. O fount of life, unfathomable divine mercy, envelop the whole world and empty yourself out upon us. O blood and water which gush forth from the heart of Jesus as a fount of mercy for us, I trust in you. We begin this brief presentation acknowledging that our Lord's infinite mercy is the only answer to our world, so broken and wounded by abortion. Only Christ, working through his church, can bring the healing that we so desperately need. Since 1973, when abortion on demand was legalized in the U.S., a conservative estimate is that over 60 million children have died from legal abortion in the U.S. Because of repeat abortions, the number of women who have lost one or more children to abortion is likely more than 27 million. The percentage of women who have had abortions who also identify as Catholic has been as high as 28%, now recently lowered to 24%. That means approximately 8 million U.S. Catholic women have had abortions. Some estimate as high as 10 million Catholic women. Those who suffer from the traumatic experience of an abortion and the loss of their child are all around us, at work, at the mall, in church, in social settings, and probably even here today. So we pray for anyone here today who has been touched by an abortion experience. We pray for you and remind you that God loves you tremendously and help is available through the church. Abortion of those 10 million women that you think of in our pews, abortion also touches the fathers that were involved, the grandparents that might have been involved, siblings, friends, the abortion staff that were involved. So our culture is completely impacted by abortion. When working with older women and men, remember that abortions occurred before it became legal. So those who minister in hospice or nursing homes find themselves hearing about abortions as people face death after decades of carrying this secret. For many women, the experience is devastating, causing severe and long-lasting emotional, psychological, and spiritual trauma. Women experience overwhelming guilt, shame, and grief, the grief of a mother who has lost a child in a traumatic and unnatural fashion. And besides the possible physical complications, these are just some of the many side effects: depression and low self-esteem, suicidal thoughts, withdrawal or alienation from partner, spouse, family, and friends, fear that God will punish her or is punishing her, deep need to control others and or situations, self-punishing behaviors such as cutting and other deliberate self-harm, sleep problems including abortion-related nightmares or hearing sounds of a baby crying, eating disorders, sexual dysfunction and problems with intimacy, problems bonding with other children or subsequent children, alcohol and drug dependency, desire for a replacement baby, rapid repeat pregnancy and an increased risk for subsequent abortion, involvement with the pro-choice movement or an unhealthy, imbalanced involvement in the pro-life movement, and certainly a great deal of anger. Studies indicate that abortion significantly increases mental health risks. Just two examples: women with an abortion history are nearly 3 times as likely as their peers without an abortion experience to report significant depression. And the suicide rate is nearly 6 times greater among women who aborted compared with women who delivered. We must also remember, as mentioned before, to consider the impact of abortion on the father, on the family and friends, grandparents, siblings, and all those who might have assisted in the abortion. A great deal of healing is needed. From Pope Francis we have, I see clearly that the thing the church needs most today is the ability to heal wounds and to warm the hearts of the faithful. It needs nearness, proximity. I see the church as a field hospital after battle. You have to heal their wounds. Then we can talk about everything else. Heal the wounds, and you have to start from the ground up. And the U.S. bishops have been involved in responding to this battle for many years. Shortly after abortion was legalized, the U.S. bishops released their pastoral plan for pro-life activities, where they committed the pastoral resources of the church to the specific needs of those who have had or have taken part in abortion. And they reminded the church that it is important that we realize God's mercy is always available and without limit, that the Christian life can be restored and renewed through the sacraments, and that union with God can be accomplished despite the problems of human existence. By 2001, when the pastoral plan was updated, the bishops noted that the church offers reconciliation as well as spiritual and psychological care for those suffering from abortion's aftermath, primarily through diocesan-based programs most often called Project Rachel. Every church-sponsored program and identifiably Catholic organization and agency should know where to refer those in need of post-abortion healing. So who should know where to refer those in need of abortion healing? Well, certainly all of us here in particular, but also those who might be spiritual directors or staff at retreat centers, men and women religious, Catholic charities and social service staff, high school and college chaplains and counselors, hospital chaplains, medical professionals, hospice workers, nursing home staff, volunteer chaplains, pregnancy center staff, and clergy of other faith. The church has the capacity to involve all of these in the healing ministry of Project Rachel. So what actually is the Project Rachel ministry? Well, here is a description that the U.S. bishops use. Project Rachel is the Catholic Church's ministry to those who have been involved in an abortion. It is a diocesan-based network of specially trained priests, religious, counselors, and laypersons who provide a team-responsive care for those suffering in the aftermath of abortion. In addition to referring for sacramental reconciliation, the ministry provides an integrated network of services, including pastoral counseling, spiritual direction, support groups, retreats, and referrals to licensed mental health professionals. What began as a single diocesan ministry in 1984 eventually spread to the majority of U.S. dioceses. In 1999, the U.S. bishops released a Project Rachel resource manual for priests and continued to provide more resources to dioceses. By 2009, a more developed resource manual was released, followed by much more programming assistance in helping dioceses strengthen or launch their diocesan abortion healing ministry, now most often called Project Rachel Ministry. U.S. Diocesan Project Rachel Ministry has these key elements. The merciful love of Jesus Christ is at the heart of the ministry. The ministry operates with the approval and oversight of the bishop, which is very important. The ministry actively involves diocesan priests. A confidential designated helpline is answered by trained staff or volunteers in the diocese. And the ministry provides an integrated approach to healing. Mary will be unpacking that integrated approach to healing in just a minute. Archbishop Joseph Naumann of Kansas City, who is going to be our incoming chairman of the Pro-Life Committee in just a week or two, says that Project Rachel Ministry is at the heart of the church because mercy and forgiveness is at the heart of Jesus' mission, ministry, and message. He outlines 3 important points. Post-abortion healing is an essential part of our pro-life apostolate. So it's not just a side thing we do as pro-life leaders, it's an essential part. It is an important ingredient in the new evangelization for the church. And facilitating an encounter with Christ is part of what it means to be Catholic. The ministry is a continuation of Jesus' healing ministry through the church and her representatives. Project Rachel Ministry is not simply a program to be administered, it is part of the continuing story of God's salvation history. And now I'll turn it over to Mary.
Gracias, Tom. Buenos dias. That's all I can speak on Espanol. Let's see here, okay. So, let's talk about actually how, get into a bit deeper of what Project Rachel is. So if you look here on the slide, you'll see the image of Jesus at the well, meeting the Samaritan woman. So the structural foundation of this ministry is Jesus Christ's merciful love. He does the healing, and we are helping to facilitate that encounter with Christ. So I want to explain what we mean by the integrated approach to healing. The term integrated, number one, refers to the human person. Who are we? We are a body and soul unity, and so the wound of abortion is both spiritual and psychological, very emotional, mental wound within the person. And so we're ministering to the whole person, not just to the wound. We minister to the person. To remember to see the person as a daughter or son of God and not the post-abortive woman. In fact, many women who've had abortions tell us that they dislike that term, actually, because it's a label. So we talk about the complementarity of the spiritual and the psychological healing within the person. Dr. Frank Moncher, who's a licensed clinical psychologist in the Diocese of Arlington, says that psychotherapy, by intention, seeks psychological healing. However, by effect, it can help attain spiritual healing. And that religion, by intention, seeks the healing of the soul. However, by effect, it can help attain psychological healing. So this approach recognizes that both dimensions are being healed together in the person at the same time. God is the one healing the person, but he uses different means at different times. The term integrated also refers to the church and diocesan network. So the ministry is actually integrated into the life of the church, and not just in the pro-life office or family life office, but all throughout the church, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So this is our integrated approach diagram, which, if you'll notice, looks a lot like the rosary. So we use the rosary as the model, and this diagram is a vision for diocesan ministry development. And each ministry in a diocese can contain some or all of these various components, but they adapt this approach to the unique needs and structure and resources of their diocese. So we encourage dioceses to offer a multifaceted approach, to be able to offer in their diocese what the people in that diocese need. And it's a vision to aspire to. Not every diocese can offer all of these different opportunities for healing. And I'll go through this in a minute. So of these components, there are 4 that are foundational, that are absolutely crucial to the ministry. We call them the foundational beads. The first is prayer support. You'll see this at the left-hand side, prayer support. There we go. So we emphasize the crucial role of prayer support for this ministry. Individual prayer of the people running the ministry, the whole diocese, in fact. Group prayer as a diocesan team, prayer publicly with the bishop and others as a faith community. Special masses, diocesan-wide masses can be held with the bishop celebrating and giving the homily. Or special parish and diocesan support efforts are strongly encouraged. And the benefits, of course, are many. The diocesan team grows in holiness. They learn how to be good listeners. It helps the team to avoid burnout. The team can better discern God's will for the ministry's development, and it fortifies the team against spiritual attacks. As I was finishing up preparing this talk, what happens every time before I get ready to go do a presentation is the cursor on my computer screen at work disappears. And I think that's the devil. He's messing with my computer. But crazier things have happened. There's all sorts of stories. So prayer helps us to have peace in our hearts and to be able to be in a place to welcome those who are suffering after abortion. And it also helps us remember who does the healing. It's Christ, the divine physician, that's doing the healing. So we also spend time in prayer seeking intercession for those we minister to. The next bead here is, I need to go back. Okay, training. That's the next one, second from the left. Training, because we need to be taking good care of the souls that we help. And there's a very unique nature to this ministry. And there are lots of things to cover that make it different from other types of ministries and different from other types of pro-life work. So we really want to be giving the best care that we can to those who are seeking our help. The next one over, the third one from the left, is confidential response. One of our best practices, as we call it, is that Project Rachel Ministry must be committed to a high degree of confidentiality. And our best practice reads, all staff and volunteers must be committed to the highest possible respect for confidentiality in all aspects of their involvement. And participant notes or records, lists of priests, healing and event and retreat locations, any other identifying information should be kept under lock and key, as private as possible. One director in a diocese shares that she seeks to have the same kind of confidentiality as a medical office that is required to follow HIPAA guidelines. HIPAA, I'm not sure what that would be in Spanish, but the guidelines required by the authorities to have around medical issues. And be very careful to respect privacy. It can be too easy to freely talk about another's abortion, especially if they have given their witness publicly. I think it's often important to remember to respect a woman's wishes regarding when and how her story is shared. And consider that even if she has given you permission to share with others that she has had an abortion, consider mentioning that she has done so. So if you are mentioning her story to others, because it's good practice to model confidentiality for others. The final beat on all the way to the right is outreach and awareness. So once the ministry is developed with a confidential phone line and referrals and your list of referrals, then word can spread. Especially remember those groups in the diocese that Tom shared about earlier. I went over prayer. Let's see. Look at this. Here we go. Okay. So now I'm going to add a bunch of beads. Coordination of staff and volunteer networks. I don't know if you all can see that. It's kind of small. Professional counseling. So counselors who are recruited, screened, and trained to work with Project Rachel Ministry are encouraged to respect church teaching and recognize the spiritual aspects of grief and healing. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And then reconciliation on the top, left-hand bead, and this is where the priestly ministry and referral comes in. Then continuing on around the circle, top right, pastoral and spiritual guidance. Now this is often done one-on-one with a priest. And this is an area where it's especially important to remember good boundaries and adhering to diocesan protocols around, especially in this day and age of clergy sexual abuse. A woman may have had an unhealthy relationship with her father or with a man, and it's important to be aware of those things, as well as it is important to stick to the procedures in a diocese around guidelines around a priest and a woman meeting and, possibly not being in an office with a closed door, those kinds of things. Next is liturgies and retreats, going around the beads of the rosary. I just heard today that in this diocese, there's going to be a mass for pregnancy loss and also child loss. And that's an example of liturgies, a great way for the diocese to come together and pray together. Retreats. Retreats are a great opportunity to encounter God in a peaceful setting. And the individual needs of the ministry participant can be met in those retreats as well. Not every person prefers to share in a group setting, nor is every person ready emotionally or spiritually to attend a retreat. Every person is unique, and so their healing journey will be unique. So sometimes someone might not be ready for a retreat, or they might be ready at a later time. But many dioceses do offer retreats. Some have developed their own retreat model, while some prefer to choose from pre-existing retreat models. Common ones are Rachel's Vineyard. I know there are some here present who are involved in Rachel's Vineyard retreats. Entering Canaan is another model. Rachel's Promise is an example of one developed by a diocese. And then finally, support groups, the last bead. These are growing more common. They are often overseen by a mental health professional trained in facilitating groups, and a priest is often present. He can offer his good fatherly presence as well as confession and pastoral counseling. So the full vision of Project Rachel Ministry is not one-on-one counseling versus group models or retreats. It's not priests or laity. It's not sacramental versus therapy. It's all of the above, offering the unique services that that person needs that comes to you for healing. Today's gospel from Luke was just such a good reminder of where this ministry belongs, and it's really from the heart of the church. The passage talked about Jesus searching for the lost sheep and heaven rejoicing over one repentant sinner. And that really touched my heart, that's what this ministry is really all about. It's the ministry of the church, part of the continuing story of God's salvation history. Pope Francis had a great quote during the Year of Mercy about making parishes islands of mercy in a sea of indifference. I was speaking with a diocesan director of Project Rachel Ministry in Florida, and she was saying that their efforts to evangelize in the parishes has brought a huge uptick in the number of calls that they are getting to the diocesan phone line. So when this is treated as evangelization, when this is really, really knit into the parish life, it really can be so helpful in reaching people who are in need. So I want to spend a little bit of time giving you more of a ground, at the ground level look at how it operates really. So I want to talk about some key team members in this ministry. The first is diocesan volunteers and staff. So most often in a diocese, this person who is the diocesan staff, sometimes they're volunteer, maybe part-time or full-time, but they really have, going down this bullet point list, they have the support of the bishop. That's very important. The responsibilities of this person are to screen and oversee the staff and volunteers. And some good practices for this person are to remember that staff and volunteers who have experienced a pregnancy loss should undertake a period of discernment before actually engaging in the ministry, both for their own spiritual and emotional well-being, as well as for those they seek to serve. It's good to make sure that someone has considerable healing themselves before they provide services and ministry to others, because it can be harmful to ministry participants and a safety risk to have healers who aren't healed themselves. It's good, this person also helps develop the prayer support network. They help build the team that's going to be ministering to people. They're the one who typically would help set up the diocesan, the confidential designated phone line. That's for Project Rachel calls only. Their role is also to listen attentively if they are the one answering the phone, to make referrals to priests or mental health professionals or to a support group. And often, again, the staff person is the one answering these calls. So another best practice that I want to weave in here are good listening skills. You are all demonstrating that very well right now, despite having just had lunch. These good listening skills apply both to the phone answerers and also to the priests as they are doing some one-on-one counseling. And this is a very important gift that the diocesan director can give to the person that they're meeting with. The Sisters of Life describe this listening skill as what they call a spirit of leisure. It is an interior and exterior silence that really focuses on the person in front of you. to listen lovingly to them, as if you had nothing else in the world to do but attend to her. Okay, the next, before I forget. Okay, so another best practice I want to emphasize again is we encourage directors in the diocese to follow diocesan guidelines for staff and volunteers in accordance with their diocesan protocols. And I think I talked a little bit about that earlier. Special attention needs to be focused on the proper intake information of people into the ministry and screening of callers who may be experiencing serious mental health or addiction problems. Spiritual direction for Project Rachel Ministry staff and volunteers is strongly encouraged. It's good to have specific job descriptions. It's good to do a volunteer orientation. All of these things would be the diocesan staff or volunteers' role. Okay, so next, the priests. There are some priests here today. Yes, okay, all right. So all priests are going to, by virtue of their ministry, be doing this ministry in a sense, because all priests hear confessions and are giving homilies. And of course, we know deacons are also preaching as well. So all priests, it's good that they are aware of this ministry and know about it. And there's lots of good information that priests can become familiar with that will help them. And so referrals to the diocesan ministry. A lot of dioceses will print little cards with the information for the ministry for the priest to have during confession. So if a woman or a man comes to confession and feels like if they want to do some more work, some mental health work, some spiritual work, or just need some support, they can then, after the confession, call the diocesan ministry and get that support. For priests and deacons, when they preach, priests tell us a lot that it is so helpful that when they are preaching about abortion, they always preach about mercy and that forgiveness is possible. Always. Because as Tom mentioned earlier, any audience, anywhere, is probably statistically likely going to have someone there who has been involved in some way in an abortion. So it's really important to talk about mercy. In fact, we did a training in a diocese, and one priest wrote on his feedback form, he said, "Thank you. After 40 years of being a priest, you have helped me see how I can preach about abortion in a way that I'm comfortable with." Because he was afraid. He was afraid to talk about a controversial, difficult topic. But talking about mercy and forgiveness was his way of really being able to be pro-life when he was afraid to openly be pro-life. So that was very helpful for him. Some priests are called to actually be more involved in the ministry because they're more gifted with the ability to minister one-on-one. And not all have the time or the temperament to do that. Some feel called to do so, and so they generously give of their time in that way. So 4 areas in which they can specifically be involved. Some women will call a ministry and say they want to talk to a priest that they know will understand this issue. And so that can be specially arranged as a separate time to go to the sacrament of reconciliation. Parish awareness and healing, pastoral counseling, and participation in Diocesan Project Rachel ministry. So sometimes a priest will be actively giving spiritual direction one-on-one to a woman who needs some further, to go a little bit deeper spiritually. And many bishops and priests will express that the ministry is among their most important and satisfying roles. Because if you think about it, I mean, you're setting the captives free from sin. And many will say that this is what they became a priest to do. So if any of you here are priests who are involved in your diocese, would you raise your hands? Excellent. Thank you. We have a few here doing that. That's great. And if you think that you are being called as a priest to be involved in Project Rachel, please contact your diocese and ask how you might get involved. And remember that the priest is part of a team. He's not alone in this, because it's recommended best practice for the diocese to offer ongoing training and support to the priests that are involved in Project Rachel. So the next team member I want to talk about is the mental health professional. So these are counselors who are recruited screened and trained to work with Project Rachel Ministry, and they must respect church teaching regarding contraception, abortion, premarital sex, all of the very difficult, challenging issues. But they should also recognize the spiritual aspects of grief and healing. So there should be some personal contact by their director to touch base, to go over the vision for an integrated approach to healing, to check if they do agree with church teaching on these issues, pro-life, pro-marriage, life, human sexuality issues, to review the referral process, to go over fees, the number of sessions they might be able to volunteer to give that client, get a copy of their current license. Their degree in education has provided their training, but the Project Rachel Ministry comes in and supports them in this work that is very countercultural for them and very difficult, because many of them are being told in school, abortion's not a problem. No, it's fine, everyone does it. And we know that that's not true. It's a deep, difficult wound. So I want to talk a little bit about do's and don'ts, some best practices. Oh, good, plenty of time. So much of my work at the Bishops' Conference involves gathering and promoting what we've learned from experienced and wise diocesan directors as they have built their ministries over the years. So I want to touch upon some things that they have taught us, because really Tom and I, we're a little bit removed. We're dealing with committees and reports and all. I mean, the people in the dioceses doing this good work are the real heroes that are true bridges to God's mercy. And it's just such beautiful work. So these recommendations came from these diocesan ministry teams throughout the United States. A few that Tom and I have already mentioned are approval and leadership and support of the bishop, the integrated approach to healing, the spiritual and the mental health issues, that Project Rachel needs to be rooted in prayer at all levels, among all involved in the ministry, confidentiality, respecting her or his privacy, and that Project Rachel should be able to provide opportunities for both one-on-one or group healing, so that the unique needs of that person can be met if possible. Training for priests, screening, training, and formation of the staff and volunteers, and again, paying attention to diocesan policies regarding safe environment, reporting of abuse, good boundaries, and to be ready to develop protocols for any serious mental health issues or addiction problems that come up. It's good to be able to know where to refer people if there are other issues. So there are a few helpful practices that we didn't cover that I wanted to mention. Oops, sorry. As post-abortion healing may open up other aspects of life needing healing, forgiveness, reconciliation, or spiritual growth, a diocesan Project Rachel ministry needs to develop local resources and networks for appropriate referrals. Again, any situations of domestic violence or abuse. Also, pro-life talks on abortion. Like I mentioned with the priests earlier, it is always good, as many of you are pro-life leaders, if you are talking about abortion, prayerfully consider the audience. You may get questions afterwards from people who have had an abortion. So just be ready to answer those questions in a compassionate way and know where to send them if they are seeking additional assistance for healing. Consider that it might be appropriate to recognize that the topic might be difficult for someone in the audience who has experienced the loss of a child to abortion. And always provide hope. So depending on the audience, allow the Holy Spirit to lead you in this way. I think it's always a good idea to talk about God's mercy. I'm a sinner. If you're a sinner, raise your hand. Okay, yeah, we're all sinners. So mercy is always, always an important message. because it gives people hope, and I think that we really need a lot of that in this world right now. Sharing her story. So remember that this, specifically in this area, is ministry. It's not activism, it's not political activity. There is a temptation to have someone share her story, because we know that, or we think that if she does share her regrets and share how it has been difficult for her, that it will convince others not to have an abortion. And while that's very true, not everybody who has gone through a healing ministry, or not everybody who has had an abortion and regrets it and simply gone to confession, I shouldn't say simply, gone to confession, not everyone may want to share their story, or not everyone should. It might be possible that they need to do some further deep work before they do so. There are tell your story campaigns out there now. There are both I regret, and also, I think you may have heard shout your abortion. They're trying to affirm people who have had an abortion and say that, oh, it was a good thing, and so those campaigns might lead some to believe that the goal of Project Rachel ministry is to have them share their story. Well, the goal is healing their relationship with God. That's the goal. And if a woman would like to share her story, she should discern that first. Her story can be very powerful, but not every woman is called to do so. Some people, if you have children, other children, it could be very difficult for them. There could be the risk of always being identified by their abortion, or the risk of giving the impression to others that healing must always include telling your story. So sharing a story is often part of the healing journey, but it can also be done anonymously. It need not be public. Some parishes in a diocese, if a woman wants to share her story, she sometimes, I've heard that it's done anonymously, in the parish bulletin even, a quote from a past participant. So it's actually her words, but she's sharing anonymously how the ministry helped her. And that can be her way of sharing and feeling like she is giving back and she is helping others after she has been so generously helped by the ministry. And stories that provide hope are ideal. Women who have forgiven themselves, have reconciled with God, and whose hearts have been transformed can provide hope to all the women and men who silently struggle. So you can ask your nearest diocesan ministry for possible recommendations of people who have discerned that they're called to share their story. And I think there are words from St. Faustina that talk about the deeper that you feel God's mercy, the greater your love can be for God. So I want to share with you real quickly our national website. Our goal here, these are the two URLs of the national Project Rachel websites, hopeafterabortion.org and esperanzaposaborto.org. Here, there we go. Okay. So here is a screenshot of the English page, and this is a screenshot of the Spanish site, and they connect to each other. So they are exact duplicates of each other. Let me put that back up because I think some people are writing this down, which is great. And I want to got it? Okay. I'll be available later if you didn't get that. This page I want to highlight. At the top, circled in red, it might be very small, hard to see, find help. I'm trying to remember what it is in Spanish. Ayuda, busca, I don't remember, sorry. So this is our map, and you can click on the map of the United States, and on the right side will appear a list of all the diocesan ministries in that state. This is a screenshot of the @ProjectRachel Twitter handle. So please follow us. Jesus said follow us. So follow Jesus here. Follow me, excuse me. And I want to end with a couple of quotes from ministry participants. These are Project Rachel participants who gave us permission to share their words. So I'll read it for you so you can see. The voice on the other end was warm and full of hope for me. My journey of healing began on that day. Thanks to Project Rachel, I am me again. The power of forgiveness is life-altering. Another woman said, "Do I feel sadness? Yes. Do I miss my child, Mary Elizabeth? Yes. But do I live my life in shame, sorrow, and regret? Absolutely not. I am at peace. I am happy, and thanks to God, I have a wonderful life." Many women express that though they regret having had the abortion, they are also grateful for experiencing such great forgiveness and coming to know God in such a way. Our final reflection is, The final reflection is the gospel of mercy. From Pope Francis, back in 2013, please reflect and share on these words. He said, "It is not easy to trust in the mercy of God, because that is an incomprehensible abyss, but we must do it. The Lord never tires of forgiving. It is we who tire of asking for forgiveness." So please contact us if you are interested in learning more. I just encourage you to always be that bridge of mercy so that those who have regret their abortion, miss their child, can be brought back to that good, holy, happy, joyful relationship with God again. We have a table at the back. We have lots of resources, general pro-life resources, as well as more information about diocesan abortion healing ministry. We also have some keychains. We brought plenty. Please visit the table, and we'd love to meet any of you. So I'm going to leave this up. This is our contact information. And if anybody has a question, you could ask it now, or maybe it might be easier if we answer your direct questions at the table. Thank you very much.